Hi Capricorn, welcome to your May 2020 Astro Update. It's Rena here. I was compiling your transits and I was thinking Capricorn has the best. I don't know. It seems like you have a really good month in store. I'm actually recording this a little bit late, but a lot of the action hasn't heated up yet, so I guess that's okay. As we begin the month of May, as with every year, the sun is in Taurus, and that is great for you because it trines your sun or rising sign. By the way, this is also for Capricorn rising, and a trine in terms of angles is easiest manifestation for whatever that energy flow is. And by the way, if you are a Capricorn sun, it behooves you to find out what your rising sign is, because then you can get a whole new level of how the transits can affect you, and you can see what houses they are going to be affecting you in, and hit me up. My information is below. I'd love to read for you. But with these readings, these are general readings, and depending on your sun or rising sign, they will affect the house placement. But, it's no big deal. It's something that you can still gain some sort of general idea of what the energies that are happening in May. And so with Taurus, we're talking about the fifth house. That is like probably of all the houses the most fun. The sun rules the fifth house. Leo rules the fifth house. And it's like parties and concerts, anything that you find pleasurable. It's a house of pleasure. So it's even the house of recreational sex. It's the house of children. So I was going to say, like being a big kid and just letting your hair down, and Capricorn is one of those signs, the stiff upper lip, keeping, being all business and no play, all work and no play. But, actually, in my observation, I'm thinking of a particular Capricorn that I know. This person seems to have gotten more and more playful as they've gotten older. And what I read that kind of corresponds with this is that Capricorn is all about, because you rule the 10th house of career, so about attainment. So once you've reached that level of attainment, then you can relax. And that made perfect sense to me. You're ruled by Saturn, that's the planet of old age, but you could look at it as in the future, in the sense of, getting everything prepared for the future. And once you've done what you need to do, then you feel like you can enjoy the fruits of your labor. And that, to me, that would be the ultimate, because, getting caught up in that trap of always trying to get more and more could lead to never being able to do that. And that would be sad. So hopefully you're going to feel that desire to kind of lighten up, let your hair down, do something special. Of course, given world events, that may be as exciting as going to a park that you've never gone to before, or something like that. Well, it depends on where you live. Some people are totally free, and I envy you, any of you that are totally free like that. So this is also the house of romance. So if you're single, you might be crushing on somebody. You might have somebody in mind. Actually, Mercury is in this house, so you might be what they call talking to somebody. I really, this is what the youngsters say. I'm talking to somebody, but that could be sleeping with them for all I know. That might work with this house too. So that's happening. Mercury is in this house. So this is a house of artistic projects, also the business that you own. Who knows? Maybe you're thinking about doing something for yourself, and you're researching, and you're kind of brainstorming, being creative about it. On the 7th, we have a full moon at 18 degrees of Scorpio in the 11th house. Now, here's a perfect example. If you're born in the last 10 degrees of Capricorn, so maybe around the 12th to the, I don't know, it's 12th to 21st or something around there. Well, actually, see, this is why I don't do this, because then I get confused. Let me think here. I would say about the last 12 degrees or so, 11 degrees of Capricorn. This will fall in your 10th house, this full moon, and that can be a big difference, because this could have implications for career matters, advancement. It could be promotion, or some sort of recognition. And by the way, usually when I record, I have the windows closed, but I couldn't help myself. I just have to have those windows open, because we're finally getting some really nice air. So if there's any outdoor noises, I apologize. So for the other people, this is in the 11th house, and this is something to do with people that you associate with in group settings, also friendships, and maybe realizing a long-term goal, because this is the house of hopes and wishes, which could also, kind of be connected to the 10th house in a sense, because it's really weird. I recently found out that they called the 11th house long-range goals. And to me, I always thought of the 10th house as goals, because to me, career matters are goals. But if there is anything that's coming to fruition, it would be, I would think it's like your desires that are apart from your career aspirations. And that could run the gamut from, where you want to live, what kind of things that, the kind of house. I mean, even things that have nothing to do with a career, but things that you have been working on. And in terms of friendships, this could even be like you cutting ties to people that are not really serving a higher purpose, in the sense that this can be seeing people in a certain way, and that can involve your ability to see them in a new light, let's put it that way. Or even hearing about a friend and hearing that something's going on with them, and then, being made aware of that. And by the way, when I talk about friendships with the full moon, it's important to note that the full moon, it's like this is as far as you can go, and something has to kind of change. So that doesn't, even I could even see something along the lines of a romance, where it's like you're friends with somebody and you realize that you want to be something more than that. So it doesn't have to be something bad, but in the case where it's something where you feel that you need to cut ties with somebody or some group of people, either a particular group you belong to that's, a gardening group, or if it's something that is a social circle, that it's for your highest good. It's not bad. It may feel sad because you feel that it'll be emotional or just something along those lines, but ultimately it can have a good outcome for you, and that's an important factor. You have to kind of look at it from, what is this going to provide for me, and is this really a bad thing after all? Mercury goes into Gemini on the 11th, and this is your 6th house. So I think that what's great about this month is that even when things get down to brass tacks, when we're talking about more practical energy of the sixth house, which is related to your workplace and the daily grind, if you will, your schedule on a daily basis and your health. That's what this area represents. Even when it gets into that arena, it still is something that you resonate with anyway, because it's an earth house, it's Virgo's house. And so it's not something that you're uncomfortable and saying, oh, now I have to work. No, you like that. And so you may be, Mercury rules this house because Virgo rules this house. And with Mercury in this house, it could even be about diet. So thinking about it, researching it, and maybe even creating a plan for yourself, or thinking about a structure. Thinking about how you're going to structure things, or even your day as it is. You may get some kind of news that's connected to your work. Perhaps, with all of the shutdowns, it turns out even when people are starting to go back into this workplace, that they have decided that they're going to have flex time, that they're going to do half from home and half there. Because, if you think about it, there probably have been a lot of people who continue to work from home and the world didn't end. I've often wondered that ever since the internet has gotten to the point where everybody can have high-speed internet. Why the necessity for being in an office unless you have to physically see people? And the cost of that, versus having people working from home. Well, obviously, there's an old paradigm where they felt that people should be supervised, and it's almost like not trusting your employees. So therefore, this forced employers to see that they had to do something, and then they get that same productivity. It's kind of like, okay, let's see if you're on the clock. But it's like, as long as you get your work done, that's the whole point. And it creates more flexibility in life. So if that's the case, you may really like that, because you do have Gemini in that sixth house, and so you may crave flexibility and variety in your workplace as it is. Even as a Capricorn, that may feel more natural to you than being in an office, being in a cubicle, day after day after day in one place. And on the same day, Saturn goes retrograde at 1 degree of Aquarius in your second house of earned income. Now, I want to illustrate something that I think is really important, and this is for everybody, to know about predictive astrology. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not really that into it. I do it because that's part of it, but that's my main interest is in self-growth and looking at the chart for self-growth. I was just listening to another astrologer talking about Saturn and retrograde and mentioning social distancing. Now, Saturn rules restrictions and Aquarius rules groups. Well, that makes perfect sense. But did any astrologers that you knew predict social distancing? Because, and then they were talking about Pluto being about viruses or something like that, pathogens. And, these kinds of things are very hard to pinpoint, because we can look at them and we can say that, but there are so many possibilities. And this is one of the reasons why I like to keep it more open-ended, because I think that I don't want people to assume that because I say something, oh, that's going to happen to me. We have to be very careful about what we receive into our minds. And that's why I've always been ambivalent about predictions, because I don't want people to to assume that they're going to happen and then have a self-fulfilling prophecy. So just keep that in mind. Saturn is only retrograding at 1 degree of Aquarius, and it's going to go back into your sign in July. So for all intents and purposes, and by the way, it's not intense purposes. So I see some people reading intense and purposes. For all intents and purposes, Saturn will be for most of the year in Capricorn, back in your sign, July until December. Even when it goes direct in September, it's going to take time to get back into Aquarius. And so you're going to be still revisiting some of those issues in that first house of yours. And that's pretty cool, because Saturn in the first house, I think, is really a great thing. I think it can give you your life so much structure that you can look back after the transit, so in 2021 and beyond, and say, wow, this was a period of time that I really got everything together, got all my ducks in a row, and then I was able to, and this is like in a general way, because I look at the first house as kind of like the catch-all for your physical life, including your body. So if you have these goals, so hey, there might be something with Mercury going into 6th house and Saturn going back into your first house in July, where you're tweaking your health, but maybe at first you were just working out, doing something physical, because the first house is the self, and now you're looking specifically at diet and saying, okay, I'm getting more exercise, I'm in this regimen, but blah blah blah, and Saturn in the 2nd house, I have a whole video on that, so check my playlist. I'm not going to go too far into that, but in the 2nd house, you are either thinking about doing something differently in how you make money. And maybe you say, I need to go about it in a different way, or even just your ambition, or I guess it wouldn't be so much ambition. It would be more of your, it is your discipline. It is your, how am I doing this? And an example would be, perhaps let's say you have a 9-to-5 type of job, and because of your own particular makeup, you just don't want to do that anymore. Perhaps you have children, or you want to start a family. And I'm not just talking about women, but men, and you want to see your child grow up, and you want to be there. You don't want to be there at night only. You want to be there to see them take their first steps. And so you're saying, how can I make money in a way where this can happen, but I can still have a steady, when I can make it really a strong foundation, because that's what Saturn is in that 2nd house. Now, there's also the issue of budgets and, money that you bring in, that you spend, and those kinds of things. You may be loosening your budget. Perhaps you realize that you've been too strict, and that could very well happen with Capricorns. You guys are... Do you want to know what word came into my head? You're going to get mad at me. Well, maybe you won't. I was going to say stingy. But something, unless you have, maybe if you have the moon in a fire sign, very extravagant, and you may be less so. Or let's see, what else could you have? Mars in Sag? I don't know. Venus in Sag. But the thing is that the motto of Capricorn is I conserve, or I save. Conservative. Capricorn is conservative, and that's where the word conserve. It's like not wasting, not being liberal. Can mean people think of politics, but it's really about when you're being liberal, you're not really paying attention sometimes to how much could lead to waste. Let's put it that way. You're just kind of, you pour something into a glass, you're not paying attention to how much you need and just doing it. So you might be rethinking some of that. If you've been too strict, if you've been too self-denying, you could be self-denying. So that might be something good that you're rethinking. And on the 13th, Mars goes into Pisces, your third house. And so the third house can be siblings. It can be neighbors. Mars can be combative. So you have to watch for getting into arguments with these people in your life, people in the local area. If you're somebody who is interested in local politics, you may be, saying, I'm going to run for something and feel like very connected to it. You have to make sure that even if somebody else starts something with you, that you remain above the fray and that you don't get caught up in any drama, because Mars can be very aggressive. Even if you are the one that is irked by something your neighbor is doing and you need to talk to him about it, pay attention to your tone to make sure that you're not being unnecessarily gruff, demanding, what have you, but that you're very, assertive but polite. This may be simply that you are, taking walks in your neighborhood. Again, talking about Saturn retrograde. Well, that's something when it goes into your first house. That'll be in for some people this may still be in your first house. So that could be like walking. That's what you decide to do, is that rather than go to a gym and do something elaborate, I can just walk around my neighborhood or jog around my neighborhood, and it's free. And I get to, see more of this area. Mars is very active, and the third house is your local area. Maybe you're undertaking some kind of training, especially if has more physicality to it. So perhaps martial arts or something, but even something that you could get credentials for. On the 13th, or on the same day, the 13th, Venus goes retrograde, 21 degrees of Gemini in the 6th house. One more thing that I wanted to say, about Mars in the third house is, as I had stated, can be siblings. So watch out in terms of getting drawn into any arguments with your brothers or sisters. Venus retrograde in your 6th house. This can be internalizing things in terms of the service that you provide. Is it something that I feel is benefiting others? That could be a big question, because the 6th house is how you are serving others. And if you feel like what you're doing is really making a difference, is really good, these kinds of things can come into your mind and be important to you. And also money is connected to Venus, so you could imagine, but I've heard astrologers talk about, obviously when there's a retrograde, there can be a slowdown, but remember that this is a pretty fast transit. So even if there was some kind of financial where it felt like it was kind of stalling out because of some reason, Venus goes direct in late on June 25th. So it's about 5 weeks that you have to deal with it retrograde. And the other part of this is that I feel like you may even get a money-making offer connected to your work that you had to pass up on. So maybe if it's connected to some kind of training. Maybe you're getting training that makes you more qualified or, what have you, and now you can take advantage of something else. An example would be a teacher who gets some kind of endorsement and is able to teach after school, do something else, and I don't know, there's something along those lines. But it may be in terms of your values, and also when I say values, as it relates to money, you might say, look, I'm making a very nice living, but I don't feel fulfilled. How, money cannot buy, even if I go on a shopping spree every weekend, which you probably would not want to do. I want to feel like I'm making a difference in other people's lives, and I really don't feel that way. And it's starting to get to me. I feel empty inside. These are things that not everybody feels, but those who do, they have to address it. And this is the time to really think about those things, if that's, relevant for you. I even wonder if there could be some kind of coworker that you were in a relationship with that you started up again with. Venus retrograde can bring a lover back into your life. And in the 6th house, it could be in the workplace. On the 14th, Jupiter retrogrades at 27 degrees of Capricorn, light degree of Capricorn, and the 1st house. And that's another one where, just where are you philosophically in life? Kind of like the Venus situation, but at a deeper level, at more of a macro level. Jupiter, the bigger picture of your life. And actually, in the 1st house, this connects to who you have become. Do you like who you've become? Do you like, how whatever that image is, however other people see you, do you like that self? Is there something that you can do to become more positive? Jupiter is about optimism. And this makes you more introspective about things, philosophical. And that's a good thing, because that will help you to, especially when Saturn goes back in July, to be able to do things, complete goals that are in alignment with a higher purpose. I think also, again, with Jupiter retrograde, you may take advantage of things that you weren't able to the first time around. So luck that revisits you, or opportunities that revisit you. On the 22nd, new moon at 2 degrees of Gemini, a very early degree of Gemini. So this is the 6th house of work. And so there may be something, could some of you be getting a new job? Possibly. Possibly this is what the Venus retrograde, maybe they said we're going to cut people's salaries, and you're like, I'm out of here, but you have a new position. So you were able to just go right away to something new. However, with the Venus retrograde, this may be that that's what I said, that some kind of an opportunity with higher pay presented itself that you were able to take advantage of, and you start at the end of the month. Maybe it's a new health regimen that you embark upon. Okay, well, Capricorn, see how it went from fun and games to down to brass tacks? That's just how it goes. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I didn't expect to be going on this long, but good luck to you. Thanks for listening. Bye.